Okay, in this video we're checking out the Diatone GT-R239. This is a follow-up, or I guess an update to the very popular GT-R90, one of their first 2-inch micros back not too long ago. I think it was back early 2018, about a year ago, I think. And this is the updated version for 2019. They've pretty much they've changed quite a bit here. Obviously, the most interesting thing here is the frame, and I'm going to talk about that here in more detail. Obviously, they're using their very popular stack here, the Mini Mamba, the F4 flight controller, and 25 amp 4-in-1 EC, which I already did a review on. This is on a lot of their micro products. It's a very good product. Obviously, very reliable. So they've made a lot of tweaks over, I guess, over most of 2018. And this version here is the most latest iteration. Very little video noise, good performance, all around very good, and it's a good value. I think they're selling this for like $39. Overall, this what you're seeing here, built the R239 is $110, which is a really good deal, considering it comes pre-built. Now, it doesn't come with a receiver; it's plug and play. I don't know. Did add a little FreeSky D8 receiver here with a little small antenna. Didn't want anything kind of sticking out. Just wanted to keep it nice and compact for like shooting gaps, that kind of thing. Now for the new, I guess the I guess they're calling the R239, 239 plus 249 series. All these R series for 2019. They've updated the motors. I think on everything except for the 3-inch, they're all running these new. They're called the Mamba series or Mamba system. These are 5500 kV 1105s, and these are actually manufactured by Cobra. So very smooth motor. I think they're no longer using Sunny Sky as their motor manufacturer. They've switched vendors. Very good motor, very smooth. No complaints about that. They're running a Jumpfan 1940 or 1.9-inch prop here on this setup here on this frame. And then the camera is just a Microswift 2, I believe, or Microswift with the RunCam TX200U, which is the little video transmitter, runs on the back of the camera. There just screws in all the those little standoffs. And you can see that's a second board right there. A little micro FL connector, and they just have zip tie back here like this. It's totally fine. This new version of the TX200U does have, I think it's either smart audio or IRC trump. I'm not 100% sure I remember, but it is VTX remote control, and it was set up out of the box. You can change your band's channel power via your transmitter, and it does go up to 200 milliwatts. No complaints about the video on this one. The video was very clear. The video of VTX is very good. I have no issues with the clarity of the reception on my goggles. You'll see that in the DVR footage. It was no problem. Okay, so now getting on to the frame here. This is what I think was very interesting, and I guess it caught a lot of people's attention. It's sort of, like this, basically just like, prop guards here. It's all built into the frame. So let me just actually bring in the frame here without any electronics so you can see a little bit clearer. It comes in 3 colors. This sort of transparent color. There's a black one and a white one, of course. They have these 2 M2 standoffs in the back here, and then they just screws that on the top and bottom that hold this top little protection cage, although not too much protection. That's why they have this little plastic piece here to protect the flight controller from any hits. So that they did think about that. Yeah, this frame here is very flexible, and you probably have seen some videos on Facebook if you guys follow my channel. If you've seen that it does bend. So some people will say, hey, that's not so good. It's kind of controversial that they made this decision to come out with a frame like this. They've done quite a bit of extensive testing on this in terms of like trying to break it, and I just see some sample footage of some tests where they were flying this into a tree, and the frame didn't break, but I think the camera or the VTX broke, I think, something like that. So, while they do have some obviously protection here for the camera, as you can see, with those little pieces there, I think if you hit it direct on, the lens will probably break. But I think because of the flexible nature of this frame here, it's obviously it's going to give, and since to some extent that's going to be good, because when it gives, then it's less likely that something's going to snap. And you can see there's a lot of bracing here with these little struts all over the place. Got struts here between the two motors, and then obviously you have 3 on each motor goes to the prop guard here. And when I was flying this around, and I did crash quite a bit. These aren't the original set of props, by the way. They only sent 1. You will actually end up breaking some of these props, because what happens is when you do crash really hard, you can see the whole frame twists and it will bend, and the prop will end up hitting something because it's not completely protected. I mean, it is in line with the prop guard, as you can see there, but as it bends, some of the prop might get exposed, and obviously objects can get in between here because there's a bit of a gap between the prop guard. And it's not a huge prop guard. This is mainly for, I mean, you're flying into stuff and you could bump into things and probably bounce off without it affecting the prop at all if you're not hitting it too hard. But if you're hitting something at full speed, a tree or brick wall or something like that, yeah, this will bend and then the prop will actually strike the object, and the prop guard won't actually break. So I guess there's pros and cons to that. I guess near the time will tell if this frame will break. Obviously nothing's indestructible. Something will cause this to break. There's always going to be a weak point somewhere. You hit it hard enough, stress it hard enough, crash it enough times, you'll get some stress points somewhere, weak points will develop, and eventually something will break. But they've designed this as a single piece bottom plate here, so that everything's sort of reinforced, and they try to design this so that it would absorb a lot of the energy and not break. It would actually bend and not break. So I guess that's the idea behind this. Now, given the fact that it's a flexible frame and everything like that, it does affect the tuning somewhat. And the tune that I originally got out of this that they sent me was not good. Obviously, this is one of the very early, I guess I wouldn't call it necessarily prototype, but it's an early version. They're still, I think, working or tweaking the tune. It's not quite done yet. So I actually ended up, after playing around with their tune for a while, I ended up wiping it completely out and just went to 352. I think they originally sent 351. So I went up to 352, and just what I did was I just followed my Betaflight 3.5 tuning setup, my baseline setup that I did in that previous video for the Betaflight 3.5 tuning guide. Put a link down in the video description for that video that will explain how to set up your tune, and then I'll show you the PIDs I ended up using with this model, and you'll see the flights with that. Now I was flying around with a 550 GNB battery. I'll give you the weights of that here in a second. The weight is important because the tune that I used was for that battery. It is a heavier battery. I think that it might fly better on a 450, a little bit lighter battery, and I'll obviously will have to retune it. So I might do another video later if there's interest on doing some other batteries like a 450 or 350. You're going to get shorter flight times on a smaller battery. Of course, I got like 3 minutes on a 550. So as you reduce your battery size, the battery will sag a little, obviously more, and then you're going to cut short your flight time. So it's a trade-off, of course. It also depends on your flying style, how aggressive you're on the throttle, etc., etc. But I think that this particular frame and the way that this is with vibrations, the way it's flexible, is sensitive to the battery weight. So yeah, you're going to need to retune it for a different battery. And whatever tune that they do come up with, I think they're saying that they were using a 3S 400 milliamp hour. I don't know the weight of that. I'll put it in the description when they eventually get back to me and tell me what the weight of the battery they use. But yeah, that's the kind of, whatever they're tuning for at the factory, that's the weight you're going to have to come up with. Because if you use a heavier battery or a lighter battery, I guess the vibration characteristics of the frame here are going to be different, and the tune that they put on here might not work for your battery, so just keep that in mind. But otherwise, I thought it flew pretty good, at least on the setup that I had with the battery I had. So if you want to get the same battery and use my numbers, you're more than welcome to do so. You'll probably get a similar performance in terms of the flight characteristics. Okay, so here's the weight measurements here that everyone will want to know. And this is here with no battery. It comes at 85.5 grams. And of course, just the frame by itself here, no electronics, and it's coming in at about 20.5 grams. So pretty light frame. You know, obviously I think that's what they're kind of going for, a little lighter setup without the carbon. And you know, when you have like something like this, it's going to bend more and be more flexible. Yeah, I think it's less likely, I think, to break than a carbon frame. If they went with a carbon frame bottom here and then prop guards, I think that in a really hard crash, I'm thinking that the flexible nature of this is going to hold up better than something that's more rigid like a carbon frame, especially if you're only going for a lighter setup like, say, 2 or 2.5 millimeter. You would have to go to a much heavier carbon frame like a 3 millimeter bottom plate here, which will add a lot more weight than what you see here for this particular frame. The battery I used was this 550 GMB, and it's coming in at 53.6 grams, so the weight altogether with everything coming in at 140 grams. Okay, so now comparing this to something kind of similar. This is the ET100 from LDARC. Obviously much smaller motors here, 1103 motors, and you know, a carbon bottom plate here. So this, I think it's going to be a little bit lighter because this much smaller motors here. It's coming in at 71.1 grams versus this one was 85.5 grams. Yeah, so definitely lighter. I think it's mostly because of the lighter motors. The performance obviously is better on the 1105 motors than the 1103 motors. So you have to keep those in mind. If you look at these sort of side by side, the LDRC, the King Kong here, is a true X frame. You can see that the motors are evenly spaced, whereas the R239 here, it's a little bit more wider sideways versus front to back here. So a little slightly different frame layout in terms of what they're kind of going for in terms of their design. So anyway, I think that's kind of what they're kind of going for here, is maybe sort of the beginners, first timer market, someone that's going to be bouncing off stuff, crashing, and don't want to repair things all the time. So kind of like that. I kind of like that trend where things are being targeted towards beginners, especially, you know, ones where kind of you know, these designs where they're not going to be breaking as often or as quickly, and hopefully that's the case here. It's going to be very durable and it's going to hold up for those guys starting out in FPV and don't want to be having, you know, one crash and then they're done for the day and they have to go and do a bunch of repairs. And another downside is a lot of beginners don't know how to do repairs, so having something like this to start out with is going to be good because it's going to keep them in the air and they're going to become better pilots. And the idea is to have fun while flying and not just fly for 5 minutes and then spend a whole week repairing and waiting for parts. That has no fun, and I'm sure a lot of you have been there before. I've been there myself, and I think that these kind of products I'm seeing are actually very welcomed. I think it's going to help people that are just starting out, and you know, in terms of flying, getting better flying and staying in the air versus worrying about dealing with repairs all the time. Anyway, I'll go ahead and show you some flight demo footage. I flew this quite a bit already, outside quite a few different places, and I did try flying it indoors as well, though I think at this weight I wouldn't recommend flying in a really small space, because while this thing won't get damaged by crashing inside your house, at the weight that we're talking about here, you crash into something, it'll knock it over. You'll probably end up breaking things inside your house versus damaging anything on this particular craft. So I did fly a little bit indoors just wanted to get an idea how fast it would be. It can get pretty quick indoors, so I wouldn't recommend this in a small house, but a larger house possibly would be okay. But mostly this is going to be for outdoors, or maybe some larger indoor spaces like a warehouse, for example, large gymnasium, something like that would be a better place for this. Obviously parks are going to be totally fine for this as well. I think that having these prop guards here adds a safety element, so if you do happen to bump into people, not too fast of course, it's probably going to be okay. Obviously if you're going really fast with this, you're probably going to hurt somebody, because it still weighs 140 grams of the battery, so it's not ultra light, so you can definitely hurt people with this if you are careless. Anyways, enough of me rambling on about this. I'll go ahead and show you the flight demo footage now.